about time to bring you up to speed with what's happening globally and in Nigeria. We begin with climate crisis. Death toll in Kerala landslides hits 151 as rainstorms rescue. Far-right protesters clash with UK police at Southport Mosque. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh assassinated in Iran. Harris wipes out Trump's poll lead in US presidential race, and Russia advances on key eastern Ukrainian supply city. On climate crisis, police said hundreds of rescue workers are combing through mud and debris from numerous landslides that have killed no less than 151 people in southern India's Kerala state. Wednesday, officials said closely 1,000 people have been rescued and 187 are still missing after landslide triggered by persistent monsoon rains hit the hills of Wayanad district early Tuesday morning. Heavy rain in one of India's most attractive tourist destinations collapsed hillsides, sending torrents of mud, water and tumbling boulders through tea and cardamom estates and small settlements, the worst disaster in the state since deadly floods in 2018. The Indian military said it rescued 1,000 people and has started the process of constructing an alternate bridge after the major bridge linking the wars hit Mundakai area with the closest town of Kurumala was washed away. Mundakai is in an area greatly prone to disasters. However, the gushing soil, gravel and rock reached the town of Kurumala, 6 kilometers 3.7 miles away. Mr. Ajit Kumar, a state law and order official, said according to report, the landslide happened at the top and then affected the lower valley areas where people were staying. Focus right now is to search the entire uphill area for stranded people and recover as many bodies. Over a dozen bodies were found overnight, said police officer Ajas, who uses one name, as over 300 rescuers worked to pull out people trapped under mud and debris, but their efforts were stalled by extremely heavy rainfall, blocked roads and unstable terrain. Almost 350 of the 400 registered houses in the affected region have been damaged, report from Kerala said, citing district officials. The first landslide happened at 2 a.m. on Tuesday local time, followed by another 2 hours later. Reports said most of the victims were tea estate workers. Footage showed rescue workers making their way through mud and uprooted trees to reach those who had been stranded. After a day of hampered rescue operations, the weather department expects some breather on Wednesday, although the area is likely to receive rain through the day. At least 572 millimeters, 22.5 inches of rain fell in the 2 days leading up to the landslide, Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan said in a statement. Many areas, including Mepadi, Mundakai and Kurumala, were isolated and roads were washed away, causing immense damage to homes, said Vijayan in a statement released by his office. Efforts to locate missing persons continue with all available resources, the statement said, adding that more than 3,000 people have been moved to relief camps and the government is ensuring the delivery of food and essential items there. A huge crowd of far-right anti-Muslim protesters has clashed with police in Southport in the northwest of England hours after the town held a vigil for those killed and wounded in a knife attack on a Taylor Swift-themed children's dance and yoga class. In Tuesday night's violence, Merseyside police said 22 officers were wounded, 8 of them extremely. The conflict started when several hundred people, most of them men, started aiming a Southport mosque, setting vehicles and wheelie bins on fire and attacking a local shop. Bottles and bricks were thrown at police, who connected the rioters to the English Defence League, a group that has sometimes staged violent demonstrations against Islam. Off-duty officers and reinforcements from other forces were brought in to restore calm. Assistant Chief Constable Alex Gore said in a statement, tonight Merseyside police has faced serious violence in Southport, adding that officers had displayed courage whilst under constant and sustained attack. The violence broke out shortly after hundreds of people assembled in the town centre to pay tribute to those killed in the attack, laying flowers and toys. 3 girls were killed in the attack while 8 children were wounded, with 5 of them in dire condition in hospital. Two adults who tried to protect them also remain in critical condition. Piles of flowers and soft toys laid at a vigil in Southport following Monday's attack. United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer vowed that the full force of the law will be used against the rioters. Police have arrested a teenager for murder and attempted murder over the stabbings, saying the suspect was born in the Welsh city of Cardiff and lived in a village near Southport. Goss and local politicians said many of those involved in Tuesday's violence came from outside the area, while the Liverpool Region Mosque Network said a minority of people were trying to use the incident to spread hatred. The three girls who died in the attack have been named as 6-year-old Baby King, 7-year-old Elsie Dot Stancombe, and 9-year-old Alice De Silva Aguirre, whose parents are Portuguese. Now on Israel-Gaza war, Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas's political chief, has been assassinated in Iran's capital Tehran, according to a statement from the group that rules Gaza, which blamed Israel for his death. The statement said Haniyeh and one of his bodyguards were killed after the building where they were staying was hit, adding that Haniyeh was in Tehran to attend the inauguration ceremony of Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian on Tuesday. The Islamic resistance movement Hamas mourns to our great Palestinian people, to the Arab and Islamic nation, and to all the free people of the world, brother leader Matthias Mujahid Ismail Haniyeh, and the head of the movement, who was killed in a treacherous Zionist raid on his residence in Tehran, Hamas said. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps IRGC also announced Haniyeh's death. Early this morning, the residence of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran was struck, resulting in his and one of his bodyguards' martyrdom. The cause is under investigation and will be soon announced, the IRGC said in a statement, adding that the attack was under probe. The Hamas leader was killed when an airborne guided projectile hit a special residence for military veterans in the north of Tehran, at which he was staying at about 2 a.m. local time, according to report. Israel remains silent on Haniyeh's death, with report from the office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had ordered cabinet ministers not to comment. Far-right heritage minister Amichai Eliyahu, however, celebrated the Hamas leader's death on social media. Israel launched a war in Gaza, vowing to eliminate Hamas and kill its leaders after the group attacked Israel on October 7th, killing 1,200 people and taking more than 200 captive. At least 39,400 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's war, with 90,996 wounded. Haniyeh left the Gaza Strip in 2019 and lived in Qatar. The top Hamas leader in Gaza is Yahya Sinwar. According to reports, the killing was significant for the people of Gaza because he was leading negotiations that had hoped would lead to a ceasefire. Tensions were already high after Israel said it aimed a senior Hezbollah commander in a precision strike on Beirut on Tuesday. On U.S. 2024 election, United States Vice President Kamala Harris has wiped out ex-President Donald Trump's lead in the race for the White House, with the Democratic and Republican standard bearers now locked in a dead heat. Latest release polling shows Harris has closed the gap with Trump both nationwide and in major battleground states since becoming the de facto Democratic nominee following President Joe Biden's exit from the 2024 presidential race, according to a series of polls published on Tuesday. According to Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll of registered voters, Harris is ahead of Trump in 4 major battleground states, while the former president is ahead in 2. Harris leads Trump in Michigan by 11 percentage points and by 2 points in Arizona, Wisconsin, and Nevada, according to the poll. Trump has a 4-point advantage in Pennsylvania and 2-point lead in North Carolina, where the pair are tied in Georgia. Apart from Michigan and Pennsylvania, all of those results are within the margin of error. If the outcome of the poll was replicated on election day, the candidate who won Georgia will be elected president. Harris leads Trump 48% to 47% in Georgia, with Trump ahead by 2 points in Arizona and Pennsylvania, in a poll commissioned by the Democratic Super PAC Progress Action Fund. All the polling results, which were published by The Hill, were within the margin of error. The slew of positive polling comes after Harris quickly consolidated support among Democrats following Biden's decision to step aside after months of poor polling driven by concerns about his age and fitness. Harris, who will be officially named Democratic nominee on Monday, is anticipated to announce her running mate within days before embarking on a tour of swing states that will decide the election on November 5th. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, and Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, among others, have been floated as contenders for the vice presidential pick. On Tuesday, during a campaign event in Atlanta, Georgia, Harris said that momentum in the race was shifting and there were signs Trump was feeling it. Meanwhile, on Ukraine-Russia war, Russian militaries are creeping toward the strategically key city of Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine, threatening a vital Ukrainian supply line as Moscow continues its slow grinding offensive. Russia has been extending Ukrainian defenses across the whole eastern front line for months, trying to capture as much territory as possible before fresh Ukrainian recruits and fresh batches of Western weapons start arriving on the battlefield. The gains made by Russia have been mainly incremental. The front line has hardly moved in the past few months, but the recent advance toward Pokrovsk has Ukraine and its allies worried. Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukrainian president, acknowledged the tough situation in his nightly address to the nation on Sunday, saying Ukrainian troops were facing extremely challenging realities in that area. Analysts at the United States-based Institute for the Study of War, ISW, said on Tuesday that Russian troops have recently made significant tactical advances in the area, which sits just northwest of Avdiivka, the previously fiercely contested town that Ukrainian troops withdrew from in February. On Tuesday, Russian forces were around 20 kilometers 12 miles from Pokrovsk, according to the ISW, continuing that it called intensive efforts to advance and conduct a limited tactical encirclement of Ukrainian forces in the Pokrovsk region. Pokrovsk is not a major city. Closely 60,000 people lived there before the war, and many have left since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, but it serves as a major hub for the Ukrainian military thanks to its easy access to Konstantinivka, another military center. The road connecting the two is used by the Ukrainians to supply troops on the front lines and evacuate casualties toward Dnipro. Russian President Vladimir Putin has made it clear that his aim is to seize all of the eastern Ukrainian regions of Luhansk and Donetsk. Konstantinivka is the southernmost part of a belt of 4 Ukrainian cities, with Druzhkivka, Kramatorsk, and Sloviansk that form the backbone of Ukraine's defenses of the region, which is why any progress of Russian troops towards that region is worrying. The Russian Defense Ministry said its forces captured the Ukrainian villages of Luzovitska over the weekend and Volch on Monday. Both of them are around 15 kilometers 9 miles from the road between Konstantinivka and Pokrovsk. Kyiv said its forces are fighting hard to push Russian troops back, adding on Tuesday that the Ukrainian armed forces stopped 52 attacks in the direction of the region in the past 24 hours. It is unlikely the pressure will ease anytime soon. Residents wait before being evacuated to a shelter in the Pokrovsk, Donetsk region of Ukraine on July 29th. Ukraine finally started to receive new batches of U.S. weapons in May following months of delays, and it has recruited thousands of new soldiers that are currently in training and are expected to start arriving at the front lines in the fall. On more stories and on economy, Japan raises interest rates again, second time since 2007. Japan's central bank has raised the cost of borrowing for only the second in 17 years as it attempts to normalize monetary policy in the world's fourth largest economy. The Bank of Japan, BOJ, added its key interest rate to around 0.25% from the earlier range of 0% to 0.1%. It also drew a plan to unwind its massive bond buying program as it eases back from a decade of stimulus measures. The step comes hours before the U.S. Federal Reserve is set to announce a newest interest rate decision while an announcement is also expected from the Bank of England on Thursday. Stephen Agrick, a senior economist at Moody's Analytics, said the rate hike was widely expected after domestic media reported the decision ahead of time on Tuesday night. But the move sits uncomfortably with a poor run of economic data and lack of demand-driven inflation. Official figures show Japan's economy contracted by a yearly 2.9% in January to March, while consumer prices rose by a less than expected 2.6% in June from a year earlier. Frederick Newman, chief Asia economist at HSBC, said, and I quote, "Despite sluggish consumer spending, monetary officials sent a decisive signal by raising interest rates and allowing for more gradual balance sheet reduction. Barring major disruptions, the BOJ is on course to tighten further with another interest hike by the start of next year," he added. In March, the BOJ raised borrowing costs for the first time since 2007, and it meant that there were no longer any countries in the world left with negative interest rates. In Africa and on climate crisis, flooding hits displaced persons in Kassala, eastern Sudan. Sudan's eastern Kassala province flooding has compounded the hardship of displaced people who were seeking shelter there. In the area known as the Industrial School, one of the biggest displacement camps in Kassala, people were begging for help. Ali Abdul Jabbar, an internally displaced man from Sinnar, explains. Merwan Aboud, also a displaced man from Sinnar province, described the situation as dire and devastating and stressed the urgent need for help. In Kassala, individuals trekked through knee-deep flood water, clutching onto their safe possessions. Meanwhile, some opted to rest on dry land after abandoning tents that had been partially submerged. According to the Sudanese Ministry of Health, at least 12 people have died in eastern Sudan following the flooding that began on Saturday, leaving homes and tents inundated. Sudan was thrown into chaos in April last year as long-standing tensions between the military and the RSF erupted into violent clashes in Khartoum and other parts of the country. The United Nations reports that the fighting has resulted in the deaths of more than 14,000 individuals and left 33,000 others wounded, although activists believe the actual numbers could even be higher. This conflict has led to the biggest displacement crisis worldwide, with over 11 million people being displaced from their homes. Now we take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll bring you more stories from Nigeria. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now zoom on Nigeria. We begin with, in the wake of protests slated for August 1st, organizers reject IGP's request, insist on street protests. The organizers of the planned #End Bad Governance nationwide demonstrations slated for August have refuted a proposal by the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Ogbetotun, for confined protests. On Tuesday, at a meeting with the organizers, the IGP suggested confined protests in identified locations and advised against street rallies. However, Ebun Olu Adegborua, son, a lawyer for the Take It Back movement, one of the groups organizing the nationwide protest, rejected the proposal of the IGP. Human rights lawyer Femi Falana's son, representatives of the Nigerian Bar Association (NBA), other lawyers, civil society organizations, as well as some arrowheads of the planned protest, also attended the virtual meeting. The planned protests against economic hardship, which is gaining traction on social media, have been planned to be held across all states of the Federation, as well as the nation's capital, Abuja, in August. Prices of food and basic commodities have surged in the last months as Nigerians grapple one of the country's worst inflation rates and economic crunch, triggered by the government twin policies of petrol subsidy removal and unification of forex windows. The police, military, and the Department of State Services had cautioned against Kenya-style protests. Politicians who surmised that the planned rallies might end up like the NSAS demonstrations on October 2020 have continued to appeal to youth to shelve the planned rallies but the young people remain unfazed, doggedly insisting that the protest will hold. Adegborua, one of the lawyers for the protesters, had on July 26, 2024, written the IGP to provide police coverage for protesters. In his response letter dated July 29, 2024, the IGP asked senior police officers to attend to the request of the senior lawyer. Igbe Tokun subsequently requested to meet with Adegborua in Abuja on Tuesday, July 30, 2024, to deliberate further on his request. However, the senior advocate of Nigeria opted for a virtual meeting with the police boss, enlisting Falana, members of the NBA, and others to attend the meeting. Adegborua stressed some of the points of convergence for the protest as Eagle Square, Abuja, Alausa Park, Lagos, Akpak, Vanalin, Benin City, School of Agric, Bauchi, Roswell Filling Station, Iwo Road, Ibadan, Maiduguri Roundabout opposite State Stadium, Damaturu, Yobe State, Rainbow Roundabout, and Pantani Stadium River, and Freedom Park in Oshogbo. Still on the news, government suspends import duty on rice, flour, and essentials. The federal government, through the Nigeria Customs Services (NCS), has halted import duties on rice, flour, wheat, and other essential food items to lessen the high cost of food items in the country in the wake of the excruciating hunger in Nigeria. The Controller General, CJE of the Nigeria Customs Service (NCS), Adewale Adeniyi, revealing this yesterday, said the government is committed to tackling the rising cost of major food items targeted at reducing hunger in the land. According to him, and I quote, global inflation is impacting nations worldwide, including Nigeria. To address this, federal government, through the Nigeria Customs Service, is suspending import duties and taxes on essential food items to make them more affordable. We are committed to implementing the strategy seamlessly to tackle the problem of hunger in our nation. We have streamlined export processes to make sure that Nigerian goods reach international markets efficiently. We have introduced tools like advanced ruling system, authorized economic operator, and time-release study to enhance trade, stimulate the economy, and create opportunities. He called for constructive engagement and cooperation from all Nigerians to overcome present challenges and build a brighter future. And finally, on the news, Senate in turmoil as Ndume rejects office relocation. The ongoing crisis in the Senate regarding the removal of Senator Ali Ndume, APC Borno South, as Senate Whip has taken a fresh turn, with the senator firmly rejecting a proposed office relocation. Ndume was ousted from his position as Chief Whip by Senate President Godswill Akpabio following his outspoken comments about the hardships faced by Nigerians. He was afterward demoted from his role as Vice Chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriation and offered an office on the lower floor. Customarily, Senate office assignments are determined by seniority and the various roles lawmakers hold. Ndume, who earlier turned down an effort to chair the Senate Committee on Tourism, maintained that as a senior senator he can still significantly contribute to the nation's progress without leading a committee. Just when it seemed the situation in the Senate was stabilizing, Sunday Karimi, the chairman of the Senate Services Committee from Kogi West, designated Room 3.10 as Ndume's new office. Notably, Karimi was among the first to publicly criticize Ndume's remarks regarding the country's food insecurity. Ndume has sent a letter to Karimi in reaction, claiming that high-ranking senators are typically assigned offices on the fourth floor, where his former office was located. The correspondence dated July 30, 2024, from Ndume's Chief Confidential Secretary Yati Shuaibu Gawu, stressed that only former Senate President Ahmed Lawan outranks Ndume in the present Senate. A recap of major stories says death toll in Kerala, landslide hits 151 as rain stalls rescue. Far-right protesters clash with UK police at Southport Mosque. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh assassinated in Iran. Harris wipes out Trump's poll lead in US presidential race, and Russia advances on key eastern Ukrainian supply city. That's all on the news. Thanks for watching. Till next time.